Got it. Okay, I'm being recorded now. I'll be polite. First bit you'll notice it says fees and charges. In theory, they can charge you to use a Birmingham Park for an event. If you're a member of Birmingham Open Spaces Forum, you don't get charged. And I am in the process of reminding the Birmingham City Council Park Service that organisations that are running events in parks for their community shouldn't charge. So we will, if you find yourself being sent a bill and you're running a free event for your community, we'll stand behind you and tell them that you cannot be charged for that, or should not. The first question you have to answer is this for the general public? You must tick yes on this box, because if you tick no, you can't go any further. Oh, we've got Annie there. Hi, Annie. And this is one of the ones that confuses some people. So even if it's you've just invited the members of your group to this event, that counts as a public event. What they're trying to not support is private parties happening in parks. So we're ticking yes, and we're going to the next screen. I'm assuming everybody can see the screen. Yeah. Next bit is to put in the name of the park you want to use. You type a name in, you click look up, and then you have to do a drop-down list. And then you can put everywhere the location details, or by the tennis courts, or whatever, okay? This form is set up in such a way as there aren't places that you actually need to put the information you want to put. So wherever there's a type in box, you can put in here the information you want them to read, but there isn't a space to put it somewhere else. So for example, Fidelis, if you're doing lots of different things, you might go, and we're also using, and just list all the spaces. Yeah.
So essentially make sure at this point I'm including everything, a catch-all. Yeah. And you may find you have to go back later and go, oh, there's nowhere to put the answer to that question. I'm going to put it in here. Okay. As I say, I think Fidelis missed the bit where she said, this form is not terribly well suited to the kinds of events that we're doing, but it's the only form they've got. So we have to find a way to make it all fit. So that's your location details. Next. Then they want all your personal details. I am the person who holds the record for filling in this form most often. Okay. Okay, and a postcode. Okay. Now you know where I live. Oh, they don't. Oh, okay. All right then. You can be filling this in on with me as you do it if you'd like. It might be easy to do it. So name of the organisation. Make sure this is the name of the community organisation that's doing this. Okay. Okay, and a name for your event. So in our case, it would be CoCommand. Type of event. All sorts of things here, but if in doubt, tick other. Okay, and then they want a detailed description of the event. And if you look, it says include any equipment, infrastructure, activities that we'll be using. So, for example, we would put in music, stalls, marquees, generators, circus, forest school, anything that you think is going to make them anxious, put it in here. So for Fidelis, Hockey Futures, I'm guessing hockey competition with 8 teams running knockout competition or something, whatever you put, or coaching sessions. Okay, putting blah in there. If you've got a website, put it in, but you don't have to. Now this is where I start getting really fed up with this form. It's designed for things like fun fairs where they will come in for a week beforehand to set up. So you have to put in a date for your setup date.
And if you look at this, it has to be 12 weeks after today. So the first date you can put in is the 3rd of May, or it's 3rd of June, sorry. If your event is in less than 12 weeks, go back, use the box that we had before about location, go, this event will actually be happening on this date. Okay, you used to be able to override this date, but you can't anymore. And then they want a time that you're going to set up. And they want a departure date. And at this point, you could just be putting any random blooming dates in you like. Okay.
Can I just ask Emma
Yeah,
or Joe, do we know when we're getting the money?
I'm afraid I don't know the answer to that question. Have you been to your ward committee and been awarded the money?
Yeah, and I filled in all the detail, but I can't remember when we said that we would say that we would start. But don't worry, if you don't know, don't worry.
No, I'm afraid nobody tells me about the money. I'm just here. So you've got a departure time. And again, these can be random dates and times because they're not relevant for most of us if you're starting on one day and finishing on the same day. So then they're assuming that your event date is different to your setting up date. Okay, so I'm going to put that in as the 3rd of June again. And what time is your event going to start? And the event's going to end. So in most of our cases, it will be the same day. Okay, and the time of the event ending. Okay. So infuriating that, but you just have to fill something in each of the boxes, otherwise it won't allow you to go ahead. But just put in one of the text boxes, either the one that you just had or the one that's coming up, the actual dates and times of your event, and include setting up, tidying up and setting up time. So if your event is running 12 till 7 and you're arriving at 10 o'clock in the morning and you'll have packed everything up by 9 o'clock, put those dates in and times in. Okay. Please tell us a maximum number of people that will attend. This is quite important for obvious reasons. You may not know, you haven't got a clue. You've probably got a rough idea. Under 100? Well, what you do is, if you have absolutely no idea, put in the kind of, I mean, they've got 100 to 249 there. They also have 250 to 499 and 250 to 1999, both of which are nonsense boxes. So there you go. If you've got a rough idea, put it in. They do ask you on what you base this projection. So I usually put in previous events, but you can also put in there, we don't know. Okay. They will get jumpy as soon as it's more than about 300 people. And as soon as it hits something like 500 to 700 people, they'll be asking more questions. Okay, I'm going to put previous events. Where are your attendees going to park? Now, obviously, this is a different answer for all of you. What we always end up putting is, this is an event for the local community. We will be discouraging people from driving to the event. And I think I've put something in the notes about links you can use to encourage people to use active travel routes. So cycling, walking, public transport. If the park you're using has got car parking, you can always mention that. But what they're going to want you to show is you're not going to disrupt people by having huge amounts of traffic coming to a place that's not used to having lots of traffic.
Emma, Joan had a quick question. Does she need to, if the games are taking place over a period of time, does she need to complete a form for each day?
No. So in the box, either on what do you base this projection or that one before about location, put in all the dates and all the times if it's more than one. Because that's a sensible response, and we're dealing with common sense here. In theory, they have said, one form with all the dates on is acceptable, especially if all the arrangements will be the same at each one. Okay, I'll move on.
Sorry, Emma, can I ask a quick question?
Of course, Afzal.
Just going back a couple of steps, you know,
Yeah, of course.
the number of people expected at the
Yeah.
event, right? So I know if it's above 499, you have to have a premises license.
Yeah.
And if it's anything less than that, you can submit a temporary event notice.
Yes.
But would you still have to submit a temporary event notice, say it's like just 10 people expecting that particular sort of gathering stroke event? Or,
Right. So, right. Licenses. Okay. If, as Afzal said, if you're, okay, there's a thing called licensable activities. And again, I think I've put this in the notes in a bit more detail. Licensable activities are live music, recorded music, dance, theatre, cinema, boxing, would you believe it? I think there are various other things, but most of those things are the sorts of things you have in your event. If you're not having any of those at your event, for example, it's a sports-based one, you don't need a license at all, okay? If you do licensable activities, as Afzal said, up to 499 people, you can have a temporary event notice, which will cost you £21 and is pretty straightforward to apply for. If it's more than £499, 499 people, sorry, a temporary event notice won't suffice. There are ways around it, because applying for a premises license is a right nightmare. And I won't go into that at this event, at this session, because it's very few people who do it. My tip for this is, if in one area you're having a dance display and the audience around that will be 499, and somewhere else in the park you'll be having live music, you could get away with 2 different temporary event notices for each of those venues, which might be a way to do it. Okay. A premises license is a big thing. It involves advertising in newspapers. It involves applications to the licensing committee. Don't do it for a one-off event. We'll find another way around it for you. It's also 499 at any one time. So that doesn't have to, if you've got 499 people standing in front of your stage listening to music, but another 499 people elsewhere in the park, then that's fine. So we have got around it in the past, which is drawing a white line box around the area in front of our stage, and you've got 499 people in that box, and everybody outside that box isn't listening to the music just happens to be in the background. If you're definitely going to have audiences beyond that, then probably let's have another session with you one-to-one and look at some of the details. Afzal, does that help?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, our grant is going to be used on sort of organising sports activities and things like that in the park. So I don't think it comes under the license.
Yes, there's no license.
No, there isn't. No, I just didn't know whether it was for every type of activity or specifically licensing or, you know, music, etc. So yeah, that answers it. Thank you.
Yeah. And so when we get to the cinema, Afzal, you can only have 499 people in front of your screen, but we'll find a way around that. Okay, anybody got any other questions on that? And I'll head on to the next bit about commercial or not commercial. So you are definitely not commercial, so tick that box. If your event is raising funds for charity, and in this case it means a registered charity, so if you are a community group and you've got a bucket out for people to make donations to your community group, that's not about raising funds for the charity, okay? If you are a registered charity yourself, so at COCOMAD, we would have lots of buckets out because that's how we pay for the event. We are a registered charity. We would tick yes to this box. The name of the charity is ours. The charity registration number, I cannot remember off the top of my head. And in this case, proportion of proceeds that go to the charity is 100%. Because all the money being raised is being used to pay for the event. If you are doing some kind of event that's raising money for the hospice, for example, but you are taking donations on the day, some of which will pay for your event and some of which will then be donated, you would put in whatever it is, 50% etc., etc. Does that make sense? Yeah. If anything doesn't make sense, we can talk about it at the end of this meeting, or we can fix another one-to-one session to go through any specific details for your event, if that's okay. You need to attach written headed paper. I've never clicked that button ever in my life, even though we do the 100% every time and nobody's ever asked, but that's because we are the charity and they know we're a registered charity. Will this event be free of charge? Anybody charging for their event? No? Okay, tick yes. As soon as you start to charge for the event, they will come and ask you for some money, which is fair enough because you're making money out of it, which is why we collect donations to help pay for the event rather than charge for people to attend. Also, because we've got no fence, so we couldn't stop them coming. Which takes us to the next question. How will you control access to the event? And that chimes in with your question about how many people are going to be there. So our park has no fence, no gates, multiple entrances, and you can just wander in. So we have to say, we can't control access. Okay. Depending on what kind of event you're doing, you might want to do a kind of free ticketing. You might want to use something like Eventbrite, just so you can keep track of the numbers coming if you've got any concerns that you'll be overwhelmed. But put an answer in there. If they're not happy with the answer, they'll come back to you. Anybody got any questions on that one? Anybody got fences, gates? Yeah.
Some of our stuff will, although we're hockey, will be, you know, welcoming children to turn up and play on the basketball court.
Yeah.
So technically we can count numbers as the kids show up. So that's that type of thing.
But again, this form is designed for large music concerts. I see. Fun fairs, you know, they're looking at ticketing. So if you say we're playing hockey with kids, I think no one's gonna come and check on that. So you should be fine. Treat right as usual there. They're used to me now. Okay, so anybody heading down the food route? Is anybody having caterers? Yeah, okay, yes. Put some details in here. If you, are you providing food yourselves or are you bringing in catering companies, street food type stuff to do it?
I'm planning to bring in local suppliers from Druids Heath and the area. Yeah.
Fantastic. So details there can include, doesn't have to be utterly specific at this stage. Because they want
because I don't have anything specific.
Exactly. Absolutely. If you want, we've got some lists of people.
Yes, please.
So, yeah. So here you would put in, we are bringing in street food. Yeah. We are bringing in traders. If they really want this question answered 12 weeks beforehand, they can't assume you've got the answers to all those questions. But what you will have to say is these will be registered with environmental health and will have the required number of stars. They keep changing the requirement, so don't commit yourself to 4 or 5 stars. They will come back to you and tell you that you have to have someone who is registered with environmental health rather than it being Auntie Mabel making sandwiches. Now, I think you can have Auntie Mabel making sandwiches. There are certain events where that works. Okay. But we can check over that if that becomes an issue for anyone. Don't get me started on cakes for charity events at the moment. They've got me on that. Registered with EH Street Food. Okay. Anybody having a bar? No, I can do a bar if anyone wants it, but if not, so let's make our lives easy and say no for that one. Will there be a fun fair? Anybody having a fun fair? Okay, they make you say no to that. You can't just miss the question. So there you go. Here we go on to the licensing stuff. Will there be music, singing or dancing? Yes. So you've got to put the details in of that. Stage with live music. Okay, another one of those boxes where if you want to put in other details that they can't find anywhere else, you can put them there. Will the music be amplified? I'm going to say yes here, so you know the answer to that. Okay. And will you be using generators? Who's using a generator for anything? Okay. We are. Nightmare. So you have to say how many generators you're going to have. We're going to have
That's
one.
why I'm going to try not to use one, because they're a
Please
nightmare.
don't use it. If you don't need a generator, please don't use it. Okay. That makes me look like I know what I'm talking about. I don't. They have very, very strict rules. You cannot use petrol generators. Okay. You must use diesel or LPG. My understanding is that petrol generators are dangerous, more dangerous. Unfortunately, they are very, very popular, and it's very hard now to hire a small diesel generator. Most sort of activities you want, unless you've got a big stage, is actually 3 or 5 kVA. And 3 or 5 kVA diesel generators are near impossible to find. I would like to suggest maybe we persuade somebody central to buy an LPG one and we all share it. So that might be something we can look at, because it makes life so much easier as long as all our events aren't on the same day. If anybody's got any other questions about generators later on, I can bore on for that for quite a long time. Okay, we're nearly there. Right, public liability insurance. You must have public liability insurance to hold an event in a park. If you are a Birmingham Open Spaces Forum member, you will have insurance already, and that will cover you. I think it's up to 400 or 500 attendees. So in most cases, you're covered with the insurance. But if you want, if you're a BOSF member, you can go back and get your existing insurance enhanced to cover bigger audiences. If you are Hockey Futures, have you got public liability insurance already?
No, I don't think we do. And also, we've recently relaunched. There's a few things we haven't got. So it was on the list of things to sort out.
Yeah. So if you're doing an event, you can type event insurance into Google or your search engine of choice, and all sorts of people will pop up as providers of insurance. The other thing to do is ask around from other people. If you're part of something like, is there such a thing as Hockey England or something like that?
I was just about to say, our governing body, we might be able to tie in underneath
I was
that.
going to say,
yeah, lovely. I'll
if
go
you're
explore
part
that.
of some kind of wider network, chances are they've either got insurance that you're part of or can point you in the direction of the right kind of insurers for you. Again, they ask for an upload of the certificate. In most cases, you won't have it now, and it doesn't prevent you going further in the form. Okay. And then you've got to accept the terms and conditions. Yes. Then you get a summary of it. Out of sheer paranoia, because this has happened to me before, I take a screenshot of this. Okay. When you've taken your screenshot, remember to come back and then click submit, because I've made that mistake before. I did my screenshot and then forgot to submit. Okay. I'm going to submit this because this is going to upset them no end. I'll send them an email going, this is what I've done. Because I just want to show you what comes up next. So you get this, you get a completion form. Okay. Again, take a screenshot of it. So you've got it. They should send you an email, okay, with a copy of your application. They've got that. It's obviously got better at. I've got to send an email now. So they've got much better at sending you the confirmation now. I think it's much more automatic than it used to be. But I'm just going to do that, and then you are done. You have filled in your use of parks form. You should hear back fairly quickly.